Why are so many strong women breaking from the inside while everyone around them think they are perfectly fine? Welcome to Magnetic Women Monday, the show where we finally expose the silent pressures women live with every single day. And today's episode is going to hit home. Our guest, Dr. Amrita Sen Mukherjee, a TEDx speaker, a GP who has spent years studying and living the reality of invisible burnout, is about to uncover the truth most women never admit publicly. In this conversation, you will discover why high performing women collapse without warning, the real reason your mind feels tired even when your body looks fine, how childhood expectations quietly shape the pressure you carry today. And my favorite, the one mindset shift that can turn your adversity into the actual power. So, if you have ever felt overwhelmed, unseen, or strong only because you had no choice, this episode will explain exactly why and what you can finally do about it. So, let's begin. So, welcome, Dr. Amrita, to our show. I am so grateful that you are here today with us.
Oh, thank you. I'm equally grateful that you reached out to me and invited me onto your amazing podcast. It's wonderful to be here today with you.
You're most welcome. So, I would really like to start with the very beginning. Before the invisible disability became part of your story, who was the woman you were trying so hard to be, and what pressure shaped her?
That's a really good question. And no one's asked me that before.
Yeah.
The woman I was trying to be, I don't think I was. I mean, evidently we have role models who influence us. I don't think it was a conscious thing, is what I'm trying to say. But my mother was an incredibly powerful woman. She was a doctor and she worked full time. She was a great mother to my sister and I. And it's only now that I realize the kind of woman that she was, now that I'm kind of in the same life phase that she was when she was a mother. And
Right.
she left India when she was 30 years old. She left behind all of her family. She came with my father. Well, my father was here in the UK. He came 3 months before my mum. But she came, my point of saying that is she came with a baby in tow. She had a 5 month baby with her in her arms that she travelled to England with on a plane, never been on a plane before, came to a country to set up home with her husband, her new baby, and didn't know a single person. She didn't know a single person. She didn't have a job. And I just can't imagine what life was like for her and my dad and for my sister in those early years. Um, I can't imagine the strength and the tenacity and the integrity and the grit. I think grit is the right word in this situation. That the three of them had. I mean, my sister was a baby, but especially my mum, in order to make a home in an alien land, is phenomenal. To go into the workplace where things are completely different, people speak to you differently. People look at you differently, one because of the color of your skin, two because you're a woman, and this was 1970s UK, and three, you're also in a state of mind where actually things are tough. But I suppose that shaped my mother in a way that allowed me to see this very beautiful, powerful, strong, no nonsense woman. She didn't take any nonsense from anyone. And that really fed into my strength of character in terms of being able to advocate for myself and others. And I have to say, I had two of the best parents that any child could ask for. I'm extremely privileged in that sense. And both of them had strengths which they passed on to my sister and I. And so I would say that my mother was an extremely fierce role model in my life. And growing up in a nuclear family in the UK where we didn't have any other family, I didn't really have many other role models. It was my mum and my dad, and my sister who was 5 years older than me, and that was it. And that had advantages, significant advantages, but it also came with, some disadvantages as well of growing up in a nuclear family. A very long answer to your question, but it was my mother. My mother is an extremely brilliant woman.
Oh, wow. Thank you for sharing that. Beautiful. I know parent shapes our life in such a way we don't even realize. In our childhood, well, we just live our life beautifully, but then subconsciously how their single action are impacting our brain our life. It just transforms our entire life.
It really does, yeah. And that's why I have to keep kind of honoring my parents because the sacrifices they made for my sister and I are tremendous, and the example they set to us was exemplary. And it's my duty, I feel, to try and at least step in the right direction. I don't think I do as good a job as my parents have done for me, but I certainly am aware of it and I certainly try my best.
Beautiful. So, a little bit about you. When was the time then when you actually realized that I want to improve my life because there is something wrong going on?
Yeah.
There a moment or a series of moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I did a degree in massive management studies and then I went into medicine. And so I had a little bit more life experience than other medics who'd just gone into medicine at that time. And when I became unwell and I developed my health condition, the narrative that I had started to reiterate and repeat was that there wasn't any life beyond medicine. Medicine was what I was destined to do. Medicine was what I needed to become. Medicine was everything to me. And so, really, if I couldn't practice medicine in that way, there was something wrong with me. And it took a long time for my husband specifically and my sister to penetrate that barrier. And they repeatedly were. I can almost see like an ice pick, if you see what I mean, in my mind, where they were just picking away at me, telling me what my worth was and telling me things are going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Look, you can do so many different things. And I think it was having those supportive voices in my ear that allowed me to recognize that I need to do something because this wasn't me. This narrative of, woe is me, I can't do anything, I'm unwell, was not a jacket that I was comfortable wearing. Those clothes, those narratives, those words, they didn't really feel right with me. But I'd heard them so many times, my mind kept repeating them. You start to become what you think, and you start to think what you are told. And
Right.
I was told a story so many times by others who had nothing to do with me, who didn't know me, that I started to believe that story. That story was the one that I told myself. And so I'm very grateful that I had people who do know the real me, who do know who I am, who were able to repeat a different story to me. And luckily, that story became front and center of my being. And it was literally like a light bulb moment. I had to do something and I had to do something different. And it didn't matter what anyone said to me. I think the main driver of change is that I recognized that medicine was not my be all and end all. And being a doctor, did not make me a better person. I was scared that I wasn't able to work in the way that I used to be, and so I wasn't worth anything. And that narrative had to change. And so I think that it was a series of small moments that led to a big aha moment. But that was largely driven by my sister and my husband. And of course, my mother and family and friends. But really, it was my sister and my husband who were like megaphones in my ears, just resounding noise. Noise makes it sound like it was not filtered. Resounding, just the resounding sound, the beautiful sound in my ears was them. And that was really pivotal for me.
See how beautifully the people around us can literally change the way we talk to ourselves. Right?
Yes,
This looks very small, but then we have to choose our environment so wisely, the people around us. Otherwise, what we are talking to ourselves can literally change the way we see ourselves and the way we actually go out and lead our life.
absolutely. But it's acknowledging that as well and knowing that. So knowing it is one thing and saying, yes, I
Mhm.
need to surround myself with positive people or people who there's an exchange of positive energy or the summation of our interactions are positive. Because not every interaction can be positive all the time, but it has to
Right.
be kind of in balance. But it's that awareness of what is right for you that is the missing piece of that puzzle, because that self-awareness or that awareness of your place in your environment is not something that I think we're very good at. It's not something that unless we have the skills and unless we practice them, like any other habit or any other skill, unless we practice those things, we're not able to recognize what is good for us, what is not good for us, what is allowing me to have healthy coping mechanisms, healthy thoughts, healthy mind, healthy body, what is not, what is taking me away from that. And of course, we're all going to have vices. I'm not for a moment suggesting that anyone should be perfect or have a perfect environment, but on the whole, you need to be feeling good about the person that you are. And you need to have others around you who amplify that.
Beautifully explained. Yes, definitely. Acknowledgement is something very, very important, and self awareness.
Mm.
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah,
true.
I think that was a huge piece of my puzzle that I worked on.
Yeah, this
Self-awareness.
actually help us to filter down what is good, what is bad, and
Yeah.
give us a right direction.
And when I say strength, I don't mean what I mean by strength is, I suppose, the courage to do something. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you try again. Maybe it doesn't work. Maybe you try again. But it's having that courage and that resolve within to say, well, I'm going to keep trying as long as you guys are supporting me, as long as you're helping me, and I know that I've got you in my corner. I can keep going.
Wow. So, for anyone listening who looks fine but doesn't feel fine, how would you describe what that actually feels like on the inside?
Again, no one's asked me that question before. How would I describe what that feels like on the inside? It's painful. It's extremely painful to not be seen for who you are,
Mm,
to not be seen for the challenges that you're experiencing. I've become very confident in speaking about my challenges now, because I feel that I have the coping mechanisms to support myself to get through them, and I know where to seek support. But when things are not going very well or not very easily, it is hard to see what those support systems are or what those support mechanisms are. And so it can lead to significant pain and isolation. When we feel isolated, it activates the part of the brain that also gets activated when we feel physical pain. And that's why loneliness and solitary conditions are so painful, because the same part of our brain is activated. And I would say that was very, very hard for me to overcome that pain. I lost my father in 2006. And that was extremely painful. But this was different. This hurt in a different way because I felt like I'd lost myself. When you're being open about who you are, but others are not seeing it,
right.
you think to yourself, what can I do to make you what can I say to make you understand what I'm going through? Because I'm trying to show you and that's not working. I'm trying to tell you and that's not working. And in my head, those were the two mediums that I had to communicate. I think I was saying that my voice and my body language, so my physical presence, my verbal skills were the two ways in which I was trying to communicate. And I wasn't being understood. I wasn't being heard. I wasn't being seen. There was a huge incongruence with what people understood of me and what was going on inside. And I didn't know how to make that, I didn't know how to bridge that gap. I didn't know how to make that clarity because really people only see what they want to see. And people will always fit your story or your narrative into their framework, into their box, into their understanding of life, which is normal. That's how we function. That's how we make sense of the world around us. But the question is around that self-awareness piece. How can I catch myself when I'm doing that and see somebody for who they are and not for who I want them to be? How do I catch myself and offer that person the opportunity to explain to me when I have an open heart? And I thought to myself, that's what I need from the world. So if I need that from the world, I have to show that to the world so that hopefully others can take my lead. There wasn't much conscious thought around it, to be honest, at the time. I think I
Mm,
knew I wanted to do good. I mean, I've always wanted to do good. That's why I wanted to be a doctor. I
yeah.
recognized that this happened to me because I was the one who needed to do something about it. I firmly believe that. My father used to say to me, God gives you what you can deal with. And that was his thought, his way of thinking. And that was the narrative that I said to myself as well, because it was the way I could get through my challenging time. And that's not for everybody, but that is what I feel. But I think it is hugely important to recognize that you need to be the change in the world that you want to see, quoting Nelson Mandela. And, I took that to heart and I need to do what I want others to do. Otherwise, that's just hypocrisy. So I need to be that role model for my children, just like my mum was for me, just like my father was for me. I need to be that for them. There's no point complaining about something if you don't do something about it.
That's so beautifully explained. Definitely, unless and until we see ourselves being that change, we won't be able to bring the impact. And we cannot expect the change as well.
Yeah,
Why we want to see the other person changing for us if we cannot
yeah.
change for ourselves?
Absolutely. And it literally was as simple as my driver at the time was, I don't want anyone else to go through what I've gone through. No doctor should go through what I've gone through. No mother should go through what I've gone through. No woman should go through what I've gone through. No human should go through what I have gone through, regardless of what your job is, what your profession is, where you live in the world, what you believe, what you don't believe. The common denominator is we are all human. And I felt that it was my job, my role, to now advocate for people who are misunderstood for whatever reason, because no one should feel how I felt, because we all deserve love.
Do you want to share a little bit about what you went through so that our audience can literally relate about what you're trying to explain and how it actually impacts deep within us?
Sure. So what happened to me in terms of the challenges that I was experiencing was, as I mentioned, a narrative had formed about me. That narrative was essentially completely incongruent with my reality. And unfortunately, after the first birth of my first son, I developed a condition called temporal lobe epilepsy. What had happened prior to that was I was told that I had postpartum depression. Now, please believe me, there's no stigma from my side around mental health ailments, but I knew that that wasn't me. And I knew that wasn't what I was experiencing. And so it was very hard for me to advocate for myself and advocate for the fact that what I was being told was happening to me wasn't happening to me. It was something else. The added difficulty I had was that as a doctor, I really knew that this wasn't what was happening to me. And I had the language and the knowledge to articulate that. But at that time, that knowledge didn't mean anything. My identity as a doctor, as a professional, person, as somebody who knew what they were talking about, was almost just erased, with an eraser, and told, well, actually, none of that matters. And that was what the most painful part of it was. The painful part wasn't getting unwell. The painful part wasn't the challenges that I was facing as a new mother who was feeling unwell. The painful part was the lack of acknowledgement of me as a human being who knew what was happening to her, not just because of the lived experience, but because of the knowledge that I had and the fact that I had been studying and learning and been a doctor for over a decade, but that didn't mean anything, because what somebody else was telling me was far more important than what I was telling them. And that's what the painful part was. The painful part was basically being completely ignored, not by one person, by many,
By
by
many.
hundreds. Yeah.
And when was that moment when you actually could able to bring up your voice? No, this is me. This is what is happening to me. Was there?
Yeah, it was after the birth of my second son, because I thought I have gone 4 years like this. I
Wow.
cannot do another minute. I cannot go another minute without making change, because this is damaging to me. It's damaging to my family. It's damaging to my children. And what I mean by that was I couldn't be the person that I wanted to be. And if anybody is not living in alignment with who they want to be, it is damaging for them and for the people around them.
Yes.
And, I couldn't be the best person that I wanted to be because I didn't have the energy to, I wasn't very well. So when you're not well, you don't have the energy to put into anything really. And
Yes.
that comes with chronic illness. When you have a chronic illness and an invisible illness at that, it completely exhausting. The other aspect of that challenge, Ankita, is trying to prove that there is something wrong with you. Not wrong with you, let me delete that, sorry. Trying to prove that there is something invisible. Having to make people believe you can be really challenging. Sometimes if if I want to take a seat on a train because it's maybe a long train journey, and I need to sit down after about 15 minutes because I get tired.
Yeah.
Sometimes people will look at me as if, well, that seat isn't reserved for you. That seat is reserved for somebody who really needs it. And, you know, similar type things. And, you know, you just have to then explain, I'm sorry, you know, I need this chair. You may
Right.
or may not divulge why, but, you know, but it's that thing of maybe 10 years ago, I wouldn't have had the confidence to even sit in the chair because I would say, well, they're not going to believe me, so I won't do that because I don't want to have that conversation. But now I will sit in the chair because I'm comfortable enough to have that conversation, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So you were like struggling silently. There's so much going on within you. You had to talk to yourself. You have to convince yourself whether people are whatever they are saying, but there's something going on within me. So you have to console yourself as well at those moments, you know. But then how did you cope up with those things that was going on? How, like your brain, your body, emotions, how did you cope up from all of these things?
It wasn't one thing. There were many things, and it didn't happen in an instant. It happened over time.
Mm.
So the first thing I would say for anyone listening is give yourself time, allow yourself that opportunity. How much time? I don't know. It will be different for every person. And it was not one single thing. It was a variety of support mechanisms. So those are the two things that I would say. For me, it was small, small steps over time. It was the love of my sister and husband. It was the fact that I was seeing my children grow, and that was giving me so much energy and love and potential, and being a mother was, you know, is fantastic. It was the fact that I had started to read. It was the fact that I was spending more time in nature. It was the fact that I had the opportunity to have some headspace around what is it I want to do with my career. If I'm not going to be a GP 5 days a week, what else is there? What else are my interests? What are my strengths? I did a lot of searching within, and slowly every day it was getting better. In terms of the temporal aspect of that, you do need to give yourself time. And you do need to try different things to help you move through this grief. Essentially, it is a grieving process and come out the other side, but you need to be kind to yourself. So self-compassion really helped. Somebody said to me, it was 2016, and they said to me, have you heard of self-compassion? And I said, no, I haven't. And they said, I'd really suggest that you read about it. It's the work of Professor Kristen Neff. And I looked Professor Neff up, and her work was just phenomenal. And it was really simple concepts, you know, self-kindness, common humanity, mindfulness. These make up the core pillars of self-compassion. But seeing it like that and seeing that there was evidence there allowed me to recognize the power of it and the importance of it. Then I chose to do my master's in positive psychology, and learning about all of those things, learning about post-traumatic growth and going, oh my gosh, that is what I have experienced. I just didn't realize that this was a concept. I didn't realize that this was a thing. And the fact that there was a label to this experience that I had had meant that it wasn't singular. It meant that it was plural. It meant that if it was plural, it was applicable. It meant that if it was applicable, it was something that communities might feel. It was something that, you know, I can talk about and share the knowledge. I wasn't starting from scratch. And that gave me immense hope. Then writing my thesis was extremely powerful. Having my paper published again elevated me. Having the opportunity to do my TEDx talk again gave me more leverage. Being invited by people like you to speak about my experiences gives me further confirmation that, okay, this is helping, this is working in the right direction. And that gives me the support that I need to keep doing what I'm doing. And so it really is a temporal opportunity. And I don't think it's something that ever stops. I don't think that this will ever stop for me. I can't see an end point. I think that this growth, this determination to wanting to keep giving back is going to be something that just keeps building. I might not do it in the same way, but I would like to do it until I'm not able to anymore.
Beautiful. Your journey in itself is such an inspiration. Like you're not only motivating yourself sometimes, but you're motivating every single moment. And you're trying to see your happiness in different things so that you can recover fast. And the best part is whatever you're doing, you're trying to see that whether it's helping me or not, if it's helping me or not. And you're giving that evidence to your brain continuously because that keeps you motivated every time. So that's beautifully explained.
Thank you. You have to close the loop. There's no
Yes,
point giving feedback if you're not going to act on that feedback. So it's not just being reflective, it's about being reflexive. So having that reflexivity of actually making that change is
right.
hugely important. And that was a real skill I learned during my master's. So I had a
Yeah.
few specific lecturers and teachers who used to speak about that, and that really opened my eyes. Okay, it isn't just about reflection, it's about the reflexive aspect of that. And that was a light bulb moment for me.
No, it's actually light bulb movement for me too right now.
I'm so glad that I've been able to share that.
No, definitely. Yeah, I can see like so many women will feel right now that it's not just we are seeing ourselves as like something is going on and then we are just feeling happy, but then we are giving our brain and mind that evidence that yes, that happiness is bringing some results to us, and that's very important.
I also am extremely lucky to have my sister. And so, we talk about these things. We have that relationship where we talk about these things. And, she tells me, I'm really proud of you. I'm really happy about all the things that you're learning, and I'm happy about how this has changed you and how we're growing as a family. And so because you're getting that feedback from somebody else as well, um, I don't like, I don't think that was very good when you did that, or I didn't like that, or, because we have that type of relationship where we can be completely honest with each other. I'm very lucky for that. I'm very privileged to have that. I'm learning from her as well. So it's not, um, it's this hall of mirrors effect, like it's just amplifying and building all the time with everybody around. So I'm very lucky, very lucky in many ways.
Wow. No, you are definitely looking at your entire environment. I can say that you were so lucky that you had such a good support as a
100%.
parent, your sister, your husband.
100%. And I know that that isn't the situation for everybody. And so
Mm,
that's why I'm very keen to say, look for your support mechanisms. They might not be in people. It might be in nature. It might
mm,
be in groups, certain community groups that you belong to. It might be in animals. You might have particular relationship with horses or dogs, or, work with animals or something, that there might be something else that offers you that support. For me, it was my family. You will find your thing, but don't stop searching for it, because it
I
is.
relate here a little bit that during my struggle time, my coping mechanism became my supportive system became my books. I got so involved into books because I don't see anywhere in my environment somebody's talking anything like that I wanted to hear. So those books became my like hundred of books, like one after another. I used to read 5 books a day. I was like
Wow.
another. I just wanted to learn so many things because those lines were empowering my mind and it's
Yeah.
giving me encouragement. So, and that's what you need.
Yes, absolutely.
If the environment is not good enough, if you feel that you are somewhere where there is no positive mindset, or people are talking behind you, or those things are going on, just make book your friend. If nothing else, you see it. And
Absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely. Books, nature, animals, water, going to a river, see that can be very cathartic and very therapeutic, seeing flowing water. But my point is that this is my journey.
yeah,
And my journey can't be the same as someone else's.
yes.
Everybody's is different. But
Mm,
if there are some seeds or some elements of hope that somebody can glean from my journey, then I want to share that, because, like I said, nobody should feel the way I did. Of course, we all have challenges. That's the nature of life. We're going to have peaks and troughs and happiness and sadness. And actually, that's normal. But
mm,
it's how you develop coping mechanisms, so that when you're going through the challenging times, which will come, you say, okay, it's really hard now. I don't know how long this will last, but I know that I have the mechanisms to get me through to the other side. Even
mm.
if that only mechanism is saying to somebody, I need your help. You don't have to have anything else at your disposal if you can't, but just asking for help is the most courageous thing you can do. So, never be ashamed to ask for help, or to say, I'm finding this really challenging. That's hugely important.
Yeah.
I had trouble saying that. And,
Mm.
it was those voices of my husband and sister. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say that this is hard, and it took me a long time to say those words. This is hard. I need help. And it's important to give yourself kindness around doing that.
Yeah.
Be kind to yourself.
I know sometimes it becomes very hard to ask for help. It just
Yeah.
feels like it's going to destroy our self-esteem. And it just hits us so much that we, before even we go and ask for help, we have to talk in our minds so much. We have to convince ourselves to at least go speak something. So that's an important reminder for everyone that at least if nothing, if you see nothing around you, then start asking for help. You never know from where you'll get that help and how this will change your life.
I suppose the message is also on the other side as well. If you see somebody you know and you love who's behaving a bit differently or who is trying to find the words, just offer them yourself, offer them your hand, your time. You don't have to say anything to them. Just sitting with them and being with them and saying, I'm here if you need me is enough. Because then they recognize that they're not in isolation and they're not alone. So it's not just about the thing of the onus being on you. You ask for help, you think about what you need. It's also for you to be aware of those around you, for others to be aware of you around you, are you okay? Can I do anything for you? Would you like me to sit with you? Just asking those questions. Don't be scared to ask those questions. What's the worst that somebody can say? No, I don't. I'm fine, thank you. But then you've done your bit, So it's about learning how to look after yourself, but also trying to make space in your life to also look after others.
So, just a question about women in general. In your work, what emotional wound do you see or notice in women with invisible conditions? There are so many things going on with them. Then, what are those wounds that you see it, and how does it shape who they believe they are?
Wounds are around, I hope I'm answering this question correctly. First is grief, a sense of loss. That loss can be shaped in many ways, a loss of identity, a loss of ability, a loss of function, a loss of friendships. That tends to be one that I come across quite a lot with the women I work with, a loss of friendships, a loss of community. We're not always good at giving people the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes when people are unwell, they have invisible conditions, they might not have the courage to say, I'm not feeling well, so I can't. But they might not attend social engagements or not pick up the phone or not be in a very sociable or conversational mood if you're with them. And what can happen is then you get social disengagement. And with that comes a loss of community and friendship. And then you see a disintegration of one's support system. And so I would say grief and loss is a huge element, a huge wound. But I think also fear of transition. As a woman, we go through a lot of life transitions, regardless of, not everybody will go through all of these, but, tends to be puberty where your body changes. Then, you go through kind of early 20s or whenever it is that you choose to have a child, if you choose to have a child. And so you have the pre-motherhood state, then the post-motherhood state, then you have the in between that, you have the pregnancy state where you're, essentially your body changes for those 9 months and more. And then you kind of come out of that phase and you might have a few years of general kind of moving in one plateau, but then you might go through menopause or the perimenopausal area, then the menopause, or then you go through retirement. So you were
Right.
always going through different life seasons. And those transitions can be tricky because what I have noticed is, especially in high performing females, we try to be the same person in all of these different seasons of life. And actually we can't be. Some of us might be able to be, or some of us are. With these seasons of life does come change. And with change comes difference. And sometimes it's very hard to manage that difference, that different person that you're becoming, because you don't have time to assimilate it. You don't have the self-awareness to recognize what's going on. You don't have the time to have the self-awareness to know what's going on. You don't have the resources to have the time to have the self-awareness to know what's going on. So we go through life sometimes and there's that incongruency where you feel something's just not right. But it's because you don't have the time to offer yourself the opportunity to get to know who you are again. We don't have the time to nurture that relationship with ourselves. And so these are the two kind of areas of pain, of wounds that I see a lot of in women. You know, we're highly critical, very, very good at nurturing roles. And so we take a lot of that responsibility onto ourselves, and it will be we want to fulfill particular roles, and we put a lot of pressure on ourselves and our mindset. But those things are extremely challenging for women.
Yeah, no, that actually feels universal. Yeah.
Exactly.
So, and I feel that the workplace often make it worse. So, yeah, if you have those things going on, and then if you go to the work, you see a different scenario. There's so many things that going on. So, what is the truth about disability or any chronic conditions that leaders and the workplace still refuse to accept?
Okay. I think it's similar to real life in terms of, you know, I don't think you can differentiate here between the personal and the professional sense, because what we see through the lens of our personal life is what we replicate through the lens of our professional identity. And so I don't think that they're different. I think it's a skepticism, stigma, and I think it's a lack of interest in understanding. The knowledge is there.
Yeah.
The opportunity to learn is there. It's the lack of interest in understanding. And, you know, people will say, oh, that's too woke, or that's too this, or that's too that, or I can't cater for everybody. No one's asking you to. But with knowledge comes understanding. With understanding comes questions. With questions come answers. And
Yeah.
that's really all we need is to have understanding people who are willing to ask the right questions. You might not be able to support somebody in the way that they need you to in whole and in entirety, but I'm sure you can support somebody in part and say, my hands are tied, I'm sorry. But at least there's a communication there, at least there's an understanding, at
Yeah.
least there is the opportunity to see somebody for who they are and to offer them that respect as a human being. To just close the doors on something is not respectful. And to just have a one size fits all and blanket computer says no policy again is not
Yeah.
respectful. So I think these are changes that can be made. Just having a space to ask questions and actually listening to the answers to understand them. So listening to understand, not listening for the sake of ticking a box.
So let's talk a little bit more about women. So
Okay.
many women fear being too much or too complicated. How does that fear stop them from asking for help or accommodations?
So, how does the fear? I think generally people don't want to be a burden. And when you ask for help or accommodations, you're doing something that's different or out of the ordinary or not normal practice, not normal, not usual practice. And so I think that the huge hurdle there is around recognizing that you need something extra. As history narrates, women are always the ones to do that extra. Women
Yeah.
are the ones who take the lion's share of the workload at home with the childcare, not minimizing the role of a man or a father. I'm just saying in terms of the lion's share of practical work in the home and making sure things run seamlessly tends to be a woman with a man's help. And I would say that's probably the biggest challenge that women face, that they don't want to be putting anyone out. They don't want to be in a situation where they're asking for extra because it's exposing. It exposes their vulnerability, exposes their needs. And quite often we don't want to highlight our vulnerabilities. And so that's the challenge that I think women have. I certainly recognize that I didn't want to be seen than less than I was. And that in itself is completely wrong, because what is less and what is more? So my whole narrative around everything had to change, you know. It's challenging those narratives within, it's challenging those self-limiting beliefs that is our Achilles heel, I would say. Our self-limiting beliefs are our Achilles heel.
When I was going over your profile, you mentioned that the adversity can become an advantage. What is the inner identity shift behind that transformation? That is
Yeah.
something really I want to know. This is like, I'm really curious to understand this part.
So I suppose this is the concept of post-traumatic growth. So one will have an adversity or a challenge, a series of challenges, a catalogue of them, but it's how you interweave that part of your life into your story. So it's not about just acknowledging it. It's about how that is incorporated into your identity in a way that offers you one of 5 different things. One of 5 or all of them, if that makes sense. So you can have as many of these 5 things as you would like. But as long as you have one of them, it means that you have experienced this entity called post-traumatic growth. So those things are enhanced relationships. So you might find that you have a deeper sense of connection with others. I was talking before about the conversations that I have with my sister. I would say
Right.
that that's a direct result of, for me, post-traumatic growth, the fact that I have deeper conversations with my sister that are more meaningful.
Right.
Secondly, you have an appreciation for life. So just by the fact that you are sitting here with me today, recognize, for me, offers me that insight that you have an increased appreciation for life because you're wanting to put good into the world. It's that kind of thing, that a heightened awareness of good, of the good in life. The third one is greater personal strength, so a feeling of increased resilience or courage. The fourth is new opportunities. So reevaluating your identity in the context of what you're doing and what you want to do in the future. So for me, it was looking at my career. What is it that I'm doing? Do I want to do this? Is there anything else I can do? And then I did a master's, and then my whole professional identity has pivoted on the basis of my master's. And then the fifth one is a spiritual or existential change. So a deepening sense of spirituality or religious evaluation. Now, that doesn't have to mean that you are religious. That doesn't have to mean that you believe in God, but it could be a belief in nature or a recognition of your place in the world and the ecosystem around you and climate and things like that. So it's hugely powerful, and this can offer you huge mindset shifts. And that's because we talk about the trauma, we allow it to become part of our story. We have positive coping mechanisms where we can reframe situations. We have support systems where, as I mentioned, I leaned on my family, but somebody might lean on something else. We have the ability to cognitively process what has happened in a way that allows us to turn it into advantage. So, it's important to recognize, though, as a little caveat, that this growth, this post-traumatic growth, can and often does exist at a simultaneous time as distress. So it's not that you have growth, so therefore you never feel pain. It's that you have the growth, acknowledging that the pain is there,
Is
does
there?
resurface, does come back from time to time, but it's something that you're taking along with you rather than closing the door on it and putting locks and never letting it out, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, truly.
So that's the reframing of turning adversity into advantage. I've written about it in my paper. If you can put that in the podcast notes so that
Yes.
people who are listening
Yeah, they
can
can go over it.
read it if they want to.
Beautiful. Yeah, no, this is like a very deep reflection of what you just mentioned. I'm just trying to process in my mind that, yeah, definitely, if you have so many things going on, but still, you have a mindset of growth that changed the game for you. That actually
Yeah.
changes everything.
Because when I was reading about those 5 domains, I was like, oh, that's happening with me. Oh, okay, that's happening. Oh, right, okay. I didn't realize that my decision to do a master's in something completely different could be seen as embracing new opportunities. Oh, I didn't realize that actually my love of nature and me spending more time with it could be seen as spiritual growth. So, you start to look at your own behaviors and think, okay, right, all right, okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Oh, this is what has happened. Oh, okay. Now let me learn more about this. And that was very healing.
Okay. So I have so many things to ask. So for the women who's going through different phase of their life, what is the, and you already mentioned that there are so many things that we go through on a daily basis, on a moment basis. We don't even realize sometimes that there are so many things in our head, in our environment, and we have to deal with all of it. So what is the first step women should take just to feel that I'm being acknowledged, or any first step that any women can take for themselves, what that first step would be?
Yeah, okay. So first up, an acknowledgement is acceptance. Acceptance of the here and now, acceptance of the current situation, and acceptance of things are hard. I think when you accept those 3 things, we recognize that we are human, and we recognize that this is part of the human experience. And that builds confidence, that gives us courage to analyze and dissect and review our current situation. Without acceptance, it's hard to do that because things are so painful. And again, I'm not saying that when we review certain events, it's not painful. Of course, the pain will be there, but we do it with a view of recognizing that there's some benefit to this. But the thing that I would like to say, Ankita, that's really important is the timing has to be right. If you're trying to look at or process something when things are still very raw, or when you are not cognitively or somatically, so from a thinking perspective or from a bodily perspective, ready to, you're going to do more damage than good. And so we need to always make sure that we are ready to do these things. And maybe looking and saying, actually, this is not the time for me. I'm going to put this on hold for now, but I will come back to it, and accepting that. So I would say, however you shape it, however you frame it, acceptance is hugely important, because it allows us to recognize the human condition, and the fact that we are mortal and fallible, and it's okay for things to take time, relating back to my earlier answer about the temporal aspect of healing.
That's beautiful, that how just accepting and acknowledging can actually help us understand our own self, that where we are and what we have to do next. It's just so important that we see ourselves, and yet this part we always miss, that we do not accept the things that going on with us unless and until we accept ourselves as it is, and then try to rework on it and see that, okay, something is wrong here, let's find a solution, and then we can go for a little bit of help, that encouragement to go and ask for a help. And once we have the help, then we'll start to see that, okay, the world is different, little bit different than even like 0.1%. But then again, unless and until we accept, the next process won't begin.
Not blaming yourself, just being accepting of, this is what's happening. I'm not going to put blame on myself. I'm just going to hold myself through it.
Wow,
I hope that's helpful.
that's beautiful. So, what do you wish your younger self knew before she pushed herself beyond her body capacity?
I think I would say to myself, life is not rigid, I think when you're young, you don't have the life experience to recognize that and to understand it. I would tell myself to be kinder to myself. I would tell myself to chill out a bit, not everything has to be done at 100 miles an hour. Not everything has to be done to the best of your ability. You can do something, and it is, it I think I would say to myself, my success, whatever that means, is not correlated or directly proportional to my worth. The two were interchangeable to me. I'm only worth something if I get this. I'm only worth something if I get this. So I was very metric driven. So I think I'd definitely change that narrative from when I was younger.
That's a very powerful narrative if we give it to us every day,
Yeah.
because we always try to relate our success to something that we achieve, right?
Yeah.
Our worth is just like, I have a home, so I have, status. If I have a car, okay, friends will look me like this. If I
It's
have,
unraveling that
yeah,
your worth, your essence as a human being is
yeah,
completely separate to that. And that might not be the case for many people, but for me it was. So if you're asking me what would I tell my younger self, it would be really concentrate on what that definition of success is. What does that mean to you? What is your definition of success? Because the definition I was using previously was wrong to me.
do you have any practical or actionable thing that a women can do to start using this in their life? Because talking is something else, but then taking an action, something immediate that they can start today, just to change their narrative and that change the way they talk to themselves,
Yeah.
change the way they see the world. Anything that you would like to share?
I would say get a couple of post-its or get a few post-its and write on one of them, I am enough. Write on another one, your top three strengths, whatever you think your top three strengths are. And write on another one, your intention for the week, your positive intention for the week. Put them wherever you want to. You can put them in your handbag, you can put them in your bedside drawer, you can put them on your, mirror somewhere in your bathroom, whatever it is. And just look at those every day and just read them and really, really read them and take time to understand them. I am enough. I am kind, brave, courageous. My positive intention for this week is to ensure that my family have healthy meals. When you start saying these things to yourself, your narrative shifts, your understanding of what is important to you shifts, and then your recognition of what you define as success will shift. Because what you are defining as your success will be born out of your strengths and your intentions and your good work.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So, any last message for everybody who is listening to you?
Be kind to yourself, spend time with yourself, get to know yourself, and recognize that just like we need help sometimes, there are others too. So sharing your support with others is a good thing, if you have the energy and the opportunity to. And if you can watch my TEDx talk and share it widely, I'd be very grateful. So that is my request of all of the listeners out there. If you've made it this far through the podcast, please watch my TEDx talk, and please share it with those who you think will benefit from it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Amrita, for your all time knowledge and the energy you shared with us. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you for inviting me once again.
You're most welcome.
If this episode made you think this is literally my life, but I have never said it out loud, then you are finally seeing the truth behind your own strength. Dr. Amrita showed us that invisible struggle is real and it's happening to women everywhere, quietly, silently, and daily. So if this conversation opened your eyes or somewhat eased your heart, share it with one woman who always looks strong but might be tired inside. This is Magnetic Women Monday. I am Ankita and will be back with another conversation that speaks the truth women live but rarely talk about. So until then, stay magnetic.